The message from Admiral Kim arrived 2 weeks after the victory at Kepler 442b. Commander Choi read it with growing concern as he stood in his command center aboard the flagship. "Sir, what does Earth Command say?" Lieutenant Huang asked. Choi looked up from the display, his expression grim. "The Devourers have attacked 3 more worlds since we drove them off here. Each attack is larger and more coordinated than the last. They're learning from our tactics." The intelligence reports painted a disturbing picture. The Devourers had adapted to human unpredictability by sending overwhelming numbers of ships to each target. What they lacked in creativity, they made up for with sheer force. Dr. Lim, who had been studying captured Devourer technology, confirmed Choi's fears. "They're not just learning our tactics, sir. They're physically adapting their ships and weapons to counter our strategies. The organic components in their technology allow them to evolve much faster than we can." A new transmission arrived from the Velithari homeworld. Ambassador Theklan's image appeared on the main screen, but he looked older and more tired than when they had first received his distress call. "Commander Choi," the alien leader said through the translator, "we have detected a massive Devourer fleet approaching our core worlds. Our analysis suggests they have over 300 ships, including vessel types we have never seen before." The number sent a chill through the human command staff. The largest human fleet ever assembled had only 60 ships. Even with help from other Galactic Council species, they would be vastly outnumbered. "There's more," Theklan continued. "Our deep space monitors have detected what we believe to be Devourer breeding worlds. They're not just a fleet. They're an entire civilization built around conquest and consumption." Captain Nam's voice came through the communication system from Sol's Pride. "Sir, we're receiving new orders from Earth Command." The orders were both exciting and terrifying. Earth was sending Admiral Kim himself with the largest fleet in human history. But more than that, they were bringing weapons that had been developed but never tested in combat. "The dreadnought Incheon Vengeance is coming," Choi told his staff, "along with the new plasma torpedo systems and the experimental shield breakers." Major Kang looked up from her tactical display. "Sir, if they're bringing the experimental weapons, that means Earth Command thinks this is an all-or-nothing fight." She was right. The weapons being sent had been designed for the worst-case scenario, a fight for Earth survival against a technologically superior enemy. The fact that they were being deployed now meant that humanity's leaders believed the entire galaxy was at stake. The human reinforcements arrived just as the Devourer superfleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velithari home system. Admiral Kim's flagship was a monster of human engineering. The Incheon Vengeance was 3 times the size of any previous human warship, bristling with weapons that had never been fired in anger. "Commander Choi, good to see you again," Admiral Kim said as the fleets linked up. "I wish it were under better circumstances." The combined human fleet now numbered 87 ships, still badly outnumbered, but carrying the best weapons and most experienced crews humanity could provide. But when they saw the approaching Devourer force, even the veteran officers felt fear. The enemy fleet was like nothing they had faced before. Massive queen ships the size of asteroids moved at the center of the formation, surrounded by hundreds of smaller vessels. But more disturbing were the new ship types, creatures that seemed to be more alive than built, with organic weapons that pulsed with their own heartbeat. "Sir," Dr. Lim reported from her science station, "those queen ships are not just command vessels. They're mobile breeding facilities. They're making new Devourers as they travel." The battle began at maximum range, with both fleets exchanging fire across millions of kilometers of space. The human weapons performed well initially, but the Devourers' adaptive technology began to adjust to each attack pattern. "They're learning faster than we can innovate," Captain Shin reported from her cruiser. "My plasma cannons were effective for about 10 minutes. Now their shields are adapting to the frequency." Admiral Kim made a difficult decision. "All ships prepare for close combat. We're going to take this fight right to their command ships." The human fleet charged directly into the heart of the Devourer formation, abandoning the safe long-range fighting for brutal close-quarters combat. It was a desperate move, but it played to humanity's strengths: courage, aggression, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. General An Boram, commanding the assault carriers, led a desperate attack on the largest queen ship. Her fighters swarmed around the massive creature like angry insects, but the cost was enormous. For every Devourer fighter they destroyed, they lost 2 human pilots. We can't keep trading losses like this, she reported to Admiral Kim. But we're hurting them. The Queen ship's weapons are down by 30%. Captain Nam made the decision that would turn the tide of the battle, but at a terrible cost. Sol's pride was heavily damaged, her weapons systems failing and her hull cracked in multiple places. Admiral, I'm going to ram the Queen ship's brain center, he reported calmly. My ship is done for anyway. Maybe I can take their command structure with me. Captain, negative, Admiral Kim replied. We need you and your crew. Sir, with respect, you need these civilians to live more than you need us, Nam answered. Sol's pride, beginning attack run. The battle cruiser accelerated toward the massive Queen ship, her engines pushed beyond their safety limits. Devourer weapons focused on the charging vessel, but Nam held his course. At the last second, he detonated Sol's pride's reactor core directly inside the alien ship's brain center. The explosion tore the Queen ship apart from the inside, and the loss of its coordination sent chaos through the Devourer fleet. But the victory came at a terrible price. Major Kang led a boarding action that saved the Velithari capital ship, but her Marines paid dearly for the victory. Fighting inside Devourer vessels was like moving through a living nightmare, with walls that bled and weapons that grew from the floor itself. The ship is secured, Kang reported, her voice weak from exhaustion and injury. But we've lost 60% of my unit. These things, they don't just try to kill you. They try to make you part of them. The final phase of the battle fell to Commander Choi himself. The largest Queen ship remained operational, and its presence was rallying the scattered Devourer forces. Someone needed to destroy it, but the only weapon powerful enough was a Nova bomb, and it had to be delivered manually. Admiral, I'll take a shuttle in, Choi volunteered. If I can get the bomb inside their command structure, it should be enough to break their coordination permanently. Commander, that's a suicide mission, Admiral Kim replied. Maybe, but if we don't stop them here, they'll eventually reach Earth. This is what we signed up for. Sir, Choi took a small team in a stealth shuttle, weaving through the battle toward the Queen ship's docking bays. The flight was a nightmare of dodging weapons fire and organic defense systems, but they reached their target. Inside the Queen ship, Choi's team fought their way to the creature's brain center. The corridors were like the inside of a living organism, with walls that tried to digest them and floors that attempted to trap their feet. Sir, the bomb is armed, reported his explosives expert, but someone needs to stay behind to ensure it detonates properly. Choi looked at his team, good soldiers who had followed him into hell itself. Get back to the shuttle. That's an order. Sir, we're not leaving you, his sergeant replied. You are because I need you to tell everyone what we found here. These things aren't just conquering the galaxy. They're trying to turn it into one massive feeding ground. People need to know. Choi stayed behind as his team evacuated, manually setting off the Nova bomb that destroyed the Queen ship and broke the Devourer formation. The enemy fleet, without central coordination, began to retreat for the first time in their recorded history. But the cost had been enormous. The human fleet had lost 30 ships and thousands of crew members. Heroes like Captain Nam and Commander Choi were gone forever. As the survivors regrouped, Admiral Kim received reports from across the galaxy. The Devourers were retreating from multiple systems, their hive mind damaged by the loss of their queen ships. In the medical bay of the Inshan Vengeance, Dr. Lim worked alongside Velithari healers to treat the wounded from both species. Despite the losses, something important had been gained, proof that the Devourers could be defeated. Admiral, she reported, the surviving Devourers are showing signs of individual behavior for the first time. Without their hive mind coordination, they're acting like separate creatures instead of parts of a machine. The galaxy had been saved, but at a cost that would be remembered forever. The sacrifice of brave humans like Nam and Choi had broken an enemy that had terrorized peaceful worlds for generations. As the combined fleet prepared to return home, both species knew that everything had changed. The age of human isolation was over, and the age of galactic cooperation had begun. The Devourer fleet arrived 3 days later, and the sight of it made even Commander Choi pause. 47 ships of various sizes moved toward Kepler 442b like a swarm of insects. The largest vessels were the size of small moons, their black surfaces covered with weapon ports and what looked like feeding tubes. Sir, they're not responding to any communication attempts, Lieutenant Huang reported. They're just coming straight at us, same as before. Commander Choi studied the enemy formation through the main viewer. The Devourers moved in perfect coordination, like a single organism rather than individual ships. Their formation was mathematically precise but also predictable. They fight like a machine, he observed. Perfect coordination but no creativity. Captain Nam, are you seeing this? From Soul's Pride, Captain Nam confirmed. Yes, sir. They're maintaining exact distances from each other. No ship deviates from the formation by even a meter. This gave Choi an idea. Humans had learned warfare from thousands of years of fighting other humans, beings who could think, adapt, and surprise their enemies. These Devourers seemed to lack that unpredictability. All ships, listen carefully, Choi broadcast to his fleet. We're not going to fight them the way they expect. We're going to show them what happens when you face an enemy that thinks. The human fleet scattered in seemingly random directions as the Devourers approached. To the alien observers watching from the planet below, it looked like the humans were running away in panic. But Choi had something else in mind. Execute Operation Broken Arrow, he ordered. The human ships began what looked like a disorganized retreat, with individual vessels appearing to flee in different directions. The Devourer fleet, programmed for efficiency, split up to pursue each ship separately. But the human retreat was carefully planned. Each ship led its pursuers toward predetermined coordinates, drawing the massive enemy fleet into a scattered formation. Then, at Choi's signal, the humans turned around and struck. Captain Shin Hae-won, commanding the cruiser Busan Strike, led her ship in a maneuver that no Devourer computer could have calculated. She flew directly at the largest enemy vessel, then at the last second, flipped her ship upside down and flew underneath it, firing continuously. The Devourer ship tried to track her movement, but its weapons could not rotate fast enough. Shin's ship carved a path of destruction along the alien vessel's underside before breaking away. Meanwhile, Major Kang Subin prepared her Marines for something the Devourers had never faced before: boarding actions. Human ships attached themselves to enemy hulls like parasites, cutting through armor with industrial tools that the Devourers had no defense against. These things expect energy weapons, Kang reported, as her troops cut through a Devourer ship's hull. They have no idea how to deal with power tools and explosives. Inside the enemy ships, the Marines found horrors that would have broken lesser soldiers. The Devourers had turned their ships into mobile torture chambers, with holding cells designed to keep victims alive and suffering for as long as possible. Corporal Ju Sang-min found a section where dozens of Velithari civilians were being held. The aliens were barely alive, having been subjected to experiments that seemed designed to cause maximum pain, rather than gather useful information. These things don't just kill, Ju reported over his radio. They enjoy making others suffer. It's like torture is entertainment for them. The discovery hardened the human soldiers' resolve. They had come to help, but now they were fighting against something truly evil. On the bridge of his flagship, Commander Choi implemented a tactic that confused the Devourer hive mind. Instead of fighting to destroy enemy ships, the humans began fighting to capture them. They would disable a vessel's weapons and engines, then leave it floating helplessly while they moved on to the next target. "Sir, why aren't we finishing them off?" Lieutenant Huang asked. "Because they're connected," Choi explained. "Every ship that's disabled is still sending information back to their fleet. But instead of useful tactical data, they're sending confusion and fear." The tactic worked better than Choi had hoped. The Devourer hive mind was evolved for efficiency and logical thinking. The concept of fear was alien to them. But as more of their ships were disabled in ways they couldn't understand, something like panic began to spread through their formation. Lieutenant Colonel Oh Min-soo led a ground assault on the planet's surface, where Devourer troops had landed to continue their destruction. His tactics showcased everything that made human infantry deadly. Human soldiers worked in small teams, covering each other's movements and communicating constantly. They used the ruined city as cover, turning the Devourer's own destruction against them. Where the aliens fought as individuals, humans fought as a coordinated pack. Flanking maneuver, 3rd Squad, O ordered over the radio. Draw them toward the collapsed building, then hit them from behind. The Devourers, programmed for direct assault, could not adapt to human tactics fast enough. They would charge a human position only to find it empty, then get hit from 3 different directions at once. But the turning point came when Captain Shin suggested psychological warfare. Working with Dr. Park's translation team, they developed a plan that the Devourers could never have anticipated. "We're going to broadcast human war cries directly into their communication system," Shin explained. "If they share information through their hive mind, they'll all hear it at once." The plan was insane, but it worked. The human fleet began broadcasting everything from ancient war songs to modern combat footage. They transmitted the sounds of human soldiers charging into battle, the music they played before fights, and recordings of their victory celebrations. The effect on the Devourer hive mind was immediate and devastating. These creatures had evolved for cold efficiency. They had never experienced the primal joy of battle, the fierce protection of the innocent, or the celebration of victory over evil. The psychological assault broke something fundamental in their coordination. Ships began to move erratically. Some stopped responding to orders entirely. Others began attacking their own forces. During the ground battle, Corporal Ju found himself defending an evacuation site where thousands of Velithari civilians were waiting for rescue ships. When a massive force of Devourers surrounded the position, his squad was ordered to retreat. "Sir, there are children here," Ju reported to his commander. "If we leave, they'll all die. You're outnumbered 50-1, Corporal. Fall back to secondary positions." Ju looked at the scared Velithari children hiding behind makeshift barriers. Their large eyes showed trust in the human soldiers who had come to save them. He made his decision. "Negative, sir. We're staying." For 6 hours, Ju's squad held their position against overwhelming odds. They used every trick human soldiers had learned over centuries of warfare: ambush tactics, improvised explosives, psychological intimidation, and pure stubborn determination. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found Ju still fighting, his armor cracked and stained with blood. Around him lay the bodies of dozens of Devourers, while behind him, thousands of Velithari civilians waited safely for evacuation. The battle for Kepler 442b ended with the first Devourer retreat in recorded galactic history. The surviving alien ships fled the system, their hive mind damaged and confused by their encounter with human tactics. But the humans knew this was just the beginning. The Devourers would adapt, learn, and return with new strategies. The next battle would be even harder. As the human fleet regrouped and tended to their wounded, Commander Choi received a transmission from Admiral Kim back on Earth. More human fleets were being assembled. The war for the galaxy's survival was just beginning. In the medical bay, Dr. Lim worked alongside Velithari healers to treat both human and alien wounded. Despite their differences, both species shared the same desire to protect the innocent and defeat evil. The alliance between humanity and the Velithari was being forged in battle, and it would need to be strong for the challenges ahead. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Kepler 442b. What they saw made even the battle-hardened soldiers gasp in shock. The planet that should have been green and blue was now gray and smoking. Massive ships, unlike anything in human databases, moved slowly around the world like vultures. Commander Choi stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the destruction through the main viewer. The alien ships were enormous, easily twice the size of the largest human vessels. Their black surfaces seemed to absorb light, making them look like holes cut out of space itself. "Sir, I'm detecting life signs on the planet's surface," reported Lieutenant Huang from his tactical station. "But they're scattered and weak. Most of the population centers are gone." Captain Nam's voice came through the communication system from Soul's Pride. "Commander, those alien ships have noticed us. They're turning in our direction." Choi watched as 3 of the massive vessels broke away from the planet and moved toward the human fleet. They moved with purpose, like predators approaching prey, but something about their movement seemed wrong to Choi's experienced eye. "They're not trying to communicate," he observed. "No signals, no warnings, nothing. They're just coming straight at us." Dr. Lim, monitoring the alien ships from her science station, looked up with concern. "Sir, the energy readings from those ships are off the charts. They're heavily armed, but more than that. They seem to be partially biological. I'm reading organic tissue mixed with metal." The first alien ship opened fire without warning. Streams of plasma erupted from weapons that seemed to grow out of the ship's hull like cancerous growths. The human fleet scattered, their training taking over. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Choi ordered. "Return fire, but try to disable, not destroy. We need to learn about these things." The battle was brief but intense. The alien ships were powerful, but they fought like machines. Predictable patterns, no creativity. The human fleet, trained for warfare against thinking enemies, quickly adapted their tactics. Their weapons are strong, but they only fire in straight lines, Captain Nam reported. They can't seem to adjust for ships that change direction quickly. Within an hour, the human fleet had disabled 2 of the alien ships and driven off the 3rd. But the victory felt hollow as they looked at the devastated planet below. "Sir, I'm picking up a communication from the surface," Lieutenant Huang announced. "It's in the same language as the original message." Dr. Park's translation came through a few minutes later. "They're saying they have survivors in underground shelters. They're asking if we're here to help." Commander Choi felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief that some of the aliens had survived. Sadness at how few were left. "Tell them we're here to help. We're going down to the surface." Captain Bae Hoon Young led the rescue mission to the planet's surface. His transport ship landed near what had once been a major city, but was now nothing but rubble and twisted metal. The air itself seemed wrong, thick with smoke and the smell of death. The rescue team moved carefully through the ruins, following the signals from the underground shelters. What they found when they opened the shelter doors shocked them more than the destruction above. The aliens, the Velithari, were unlike anything humans had imagined. They were tall and thin, with pale, almost transparent skin. Their large eyes seemed to hold intelligence and gentleness, but also deep fear. They moved like dancers, graceful and careful. The first Velithari to emerge from the shelter was a female named Silthara. She was a researcher who had been studying the planet's geology when the attack began. When she saw the humans, she stopped and stared. Captain Bae tried to look as non-threatening as possible, but he knew what the aliens saw. Humans were built like predators, forward-facing eyes, strong muscles, scars from a lifetime of conflict. To peaceful beings like the Velithari, humans probably looked terrifying. "We're here to help," Bae said slowly, hoping Dr. Park's translation would come through clearly. Silthara listened to the translation, then spoke in her own language. Her voice was soft and musical, but full of exhaustion. "She says she cannot believe that someone actually came," Dr. Park translated. "She thought they would all die here." Through Silthara, the humans learned the full horror of what had happened. The attackers called themselves the Devourers. They were a species that consumed entire worlds, taking everything of value before moving on to the next target. "They don't just kill," Silthara explained through the translator. "They seem to enjoy causing pain. They keep some of us alive just to torture us. We don't understand why." Major Kang Subin, listening to the translation, felt anger building in her chest. Her Marines had seen combat before, but this was different. This was not war between soldiers. This was the torture of innocence. "How many worlds have they attacked?" she asked. 12, came the translated reply. 12 worlds, millions of people. The Galactic Council's defenses cannot stop them. Their weapons adapt to our technology too quickly. The rescue teams worked through the night, pulling survivors from shelters and hidden places throughout the ruined city. Each survivor told the same story. The Devourers had arrived without warning, ignored all attempts at communication, and began destroying everything they could find. But the worst stories came from those who had been captured and escaped. Sergeant Song Yoon-ji was helping evacuate a group of children when she heard one survivor's account. The Devourers had captured a school and kept the children alive for days, causing them pain for no reason other than their own entertainment. Song had to step outside to control her rage. She had fought in wars, seen soldiers die. But the idea of creatures that tortured children for fun made her want to hunt down every devourer in the galaxy. During the evacuation, the humans got their first close look at devourer technology. The attackers had left behind damaged equipment and even some dead creatures. Dr. Lim studied the remains with growing concern. "They're partially biological," she reported to Commander Choi. "They've somehow merged living tissue with advanced technology. They don't just use weapons, the weapons are part of their bodies. The dead devourers were nightmare creatures even in death. Multiple arms ended in plasma cannons that seemed to grow from their flesh. Thick armor plating was not worn but grown as part of their skin. Most disturbing of all, their faces showed what looked like expressions of pleasure, even in death. These things enjoy what they do," Captain Bae observed. "This isn't just about resources or territory. They like causing pain." As the rescue operation continued, long-range sensors detected more devourer ships approaching the system. The human fleet had saved thousands of Velithari lives, but the enemy was returning in greater numbers. Commander Choi stood in the command center, looking at the tactical displays. The approaching Devourer fleet was massive, dozens of ships, some even larger than the ones they had already fought. "Sir," Lieutenant Huang reported, "the survivors are telling us that this is how the Devourers operate. They probe with small forces, then return with overwhelming numbers." Choi nodded grimly. The rescue mission was about to become something much larger. The humans had come to help, but now they were about to face their first real test as protectors of peaceful species. In the medical bay, Dr. Lim worked with Velithari medics to treat the wounded. Despite the language barrier, they worked well together. The Velithari were amazed by human medical knowledge, while the humans learned from Velithari healing techniques. As night fell on the devastated world, both species worked side by side, preparing for the storm that was coming. The message arrived at Earth's Sol Defense Command in the early hours of the morning. Admiral Kim Dae-ho was drinking his coffee when the urgent alert came through. His weathered face showed years of military service, with scars from the Mars colonial wars still visible on his hands. "Sir, we're receiving an unknown transmission," said Lieutenant Park at the communication station. "It's coming from outside our solar system." Kim set down his coffee cup and walked over to the main screen. "Play it." The alien voice filled the command center, speaking in a language no human had ever heard before. The tone was desperate, pleading. Even without understanding the words, everyone in the room could feel the fear and urgency. "Get Dr. Park So-young down here immediately," Kim ordered, "and wake up the president." Dr. Park So-young arrived within 20 minutes, still putting on her lab coat. She was Earth's leading expert in theoretical alien languages, though she had never expected to actually use her skills. Her eyes went wide as she listened to the recording. "This is incredible," she whispered. "It's definitely an artificial language, but it follows logical patterns. Give me a few hours and I think I can work out the basics." 3 hours later, the command center was filled with Earth's top officials. President Lee Tae-jin sat at the conference table, looking tired but alert. General Yoon Hee-jin stood nearby, her uniform perfectly pressed despite the early hour. Dr. Park stood at the front of the room, her translation notes spread across the table. "The message is from something called the Velithari people. They're asking for military help against an unknown enemy. They're offering advanced technology in exchange." The room fell silent. President Lee leaned back in his chair. "First contact with aliens, and they want us to fight a war for them." "It seems that way, sir," Dr. Park replied. "The message mentions that they know we are warriors. Somehow they've been watching us." General Yoon stepped forward. "This could be the opportunity we've been waiting for. If we help them, we prove that humanity deserves a place among the stars." "Or it could be a trap," President Lee replied. "We know nothing about these aliens or their enemies." The debate continued for hours. Some officials wanted to ignore the message completely. Others thought it was too dangerous to get involved in an alien war. But Admiral Kim had a different perspective. "With respect, sir," he said to the president, "we've spent decades preparing for threats from space. Now we have a chance to make allies instead of enemies. If we help these people, they might help us in return." President Lee looked around the room at his advisors. Finally, he nodded. "Admiral Kim, prepare a response fleet. But choose your people carefully. We're not just representing Earth anymore." The man chosen to lead the mission was Commander Choi Min-ho. He was a veteran of several space conflicts, known for his calm thinking under pressure. His dark eyes showed intelligence and determination as he received his orders. "Sir, how large a force are we talking about?" Choi asked. "Take the Third Fleet," Admiral Kim replied. 12 ships, including the battlecruiser Sol's Pride. Choose your crew from volunteers only. This mission is dangerous, and I won't order anyone to risk their life for aliens we've never met." To everyone's surprise, volunteers came forward from across the Earth military. Captain Nam Ji-hoo, commander of Sol's Pride, was the first to sign up. His crew followed him without question. Major Kang Subin volunteered her entire orbital drop marine unit. These were soldiers trained for the most dangerous missions, and they were eager to test themselves against alien enemies. Lieutenant Hwang Jun-sik, the fleet's best tactical officer, requested transfer to the mission. "Sir, this is what we've trained for our whole lives," he told his commanding officer. "A chance to protect people who can't protect themselves." Dr. Lim Yoo-jin, a xenobiology specialist, joined the mission to study any alien life they encountered. She was excited and nervous about the possibility of meeting actual aliens. As the fleet prepared for departure, Commander Choi addressed his officers in the briefing room. "We're going into the unknown to fight an enemy we know nothing about, to help people we've never met. Some of you might wonder why we're doing this." He looked around the room at the faces of his crew. These were good people, trained soldiers who had dedicated their lives to protecting others. "We're doing this because it's the right thing to do," he continued. "If these aliens are telling the truth, innocent people are dying while we debate. That's not acceptable." Captain Nam raised his hand. "Sir, what if this changes everything? What if we start a war that reaches Earth?" Choi considered the question carefully. "Then we deal with that when it happens. But right now, people need help and we have the power to help them. That's enough for me." The fleet spent 2 days preparing for the mission. They loaded extra ammunition, medical supplies, and repair equipment. Nobody knew what they would find when they reached the alien world. On the morning of departure, families gathered at the spaceport to say goodbye. Some of the crew might not return from this mission, and everyone knew it, but the mood was not sad. These were soldiers who had chosen their path, and they were proud to represent humanity among the stars. As the ships powered up their engines, Commander Choi recorded a message to be sent back to Earth. "If we're really the monsters they're afraid of, then maybe it's time to be monsters for the right reasons." The fleet launched toward the unknown, carrying Earth's hopes and fears with them. Behind them, the planet watched and waited. Ahead of them lay the first test of humanity's place in a larger universe. In his command chair, Choi looked out at the stars and wondered what they would find out there. Whatever it was, they would face it together, as humans had always faced the unknown, with courage, determination, and weapons ready. The alarm bells rang through the crystal halls of Valithar Prime. Ambassador Theclon rushed down the glowing corridors, his long legs carrying his thin frame faster than usual. His pale, translucent skin showed the blue veins underneath as his heart raced with worry. The communications center buzzed with activity. Dozens of Velithari worked at floating screens, their large eyes reflecting the urgent red lights that flashed across the room. Council member Nethara turned to face Theclon as he entered. Her expression was grim. "Ambassador, we have received a distress signal from Kepler 442b, she said, her voice soft but filled with fear. "The mining colony there, something terrible has happened." Theclon moved to the main display screen. The transmission crackled with static, but he could make out the desperate voices of the colonists. Their words painted a picture of horror that made his stomach turn. "Unknown ships appeared 3 days ago," the voice said between bursts of interference. "They ignored all our attempts to communicate. They just started destroying everything. Our defense systems are useless against them. They seem to enjoy causing pain. Please, anyone who receives this message, send help. We cannot hold out much longer." The transmission cut to static. Theclon stared at the screen, his mind racing. The Velithari had always been a peaceful people. Their world had no dangerous animals, no wars, no violence. They solved problems through talk and understanding. But this enemy seemed beyond reason. "What do we know about these attackers?" Theclon asked. Nethara pulled up another screen showing blurry images from the colony's security cameras. The creatures in the pictures made Theclon step back in shock. They were massive, covered in thick armor-like skin. Multiple arms ended in what looked like weapons built into their bodies. They moved with purpose, destroying everything in their path. "We have never seen anything like them before," Nethara said. "They do not respond to any communication attempts. They seem to attack not just military targets, but civilians too. It makes no sense to us." Theclon watched the images with growing horror. These creatures seemed to take pleasure in destruction. They would corner fleeing colonists and toy with them before finishing them off. This was not just conquest or resource gathering. This was something much worse. "What military forces can we send?" he asked. Nethara's expression grew even more worried. "Our automated defense ships are 3 weeks away. The other council species with military capability are even further. By the time any help arrives, the colony will be gone." Theclon felt a cold fear settle in his chest. The Velithari had built their civilization on peace and cooperation. Their weapons were designed to disable, not destroy. Their military doctrine focused on defense and negotiation. They had never faced an enemy like this. "There must be something we can do," he said. Nethara hesitated, then pulled up another screen. This one showed a classified file marked with warning symbols. There is one option, but it goes against all council protocols. Teclon read the file with growing amazement and fear. It contained information about species that were considered too dangerous for contact. At the top of the list was a species from a world called Sol 3. The humans. The file described them as apex predators. From what the council classified as a death world, their planet was covered in dangerous weather, deadly animals, and natural disasters. Somehow these humans had not just survived but thrived in this hostile environment. They had even spread to other worlds in their system. They are classified as extremely dangerous, Nathara said. Every analysis of their behavior suggests they are natural warriors. Their entire history is filled with warfare and violence. The council decided long ago that contact with them would be too risky. Teclon read more of the file. The humans had something called militaries, organizations dedicated entirely to fighting. They had weapons designed specifically to kill other thinking beings. They seemed to view conflict as a normal part of life. To the peaceful Velithari, this was terrifying. But as another desperate transmission came through from the dying colony, Teclon realized that maybe this was exactly what they needed. They might be our only hope, he said quietly. You cannot be serious, Nathara replied. Contacting them would violate every safety protocol we have. What if they decide we are enemies too? What if they try to conquer us after dealing with these other creatures? Teclon watched another security feed from the colony. The attackers had found a group of children hiding in a school. Instead of killing them quickly, they seemed to be playing with them, causing fear and pain for their own amusement. Something deep inside Teclon's peaceful nature broke at that moment. Look at those monsters, he said, pointing at the screen. Our children are dying while we worry about protocols. These humans might be dangerous, but they are not the ones attacking innocent civilians right now. He moved to the communication console. His hands shook as he began preparing a transmission toward the Sol system. He had no idea if the humans would even receive it or if they would understand it, but he had to try. Ambassador, please reconsider, Nathara pleaded. Once we send this message, there is no going back. We will have made contact with a species we know nothing about. Teclon paused for a moment, then thought of the children on the colony. He thought of all the peaceful worlds that might face this same threat if these attackers were not stopped. Sometimes he realized you needed monsters to fight monsters. Record this message, he said to the technician. This is Ambassador Teclon of the Velithari people, speaking to the humans of Sol 3. We are under attack by an unknown enemy. Our people are dying. We have heard that you are warriors. If this is true, we beg for your help. We can offer advanced technology in exchange for your military assistance. Please, if you receive this message, come to Kepler 442b. Time is running out. He sent the message toward the Sol system and hoped that these dangerous humans would prove to be the right kind of dangerous. In the distance, space itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen when the galaxy's most peaceful species called upon its most violent ones for help. The die was cast. Now they could only wait and hope that help would come before it was too late.